So is the screen visible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Very much audible, sir. Dr.
Okay,
Adarsh Padiyar
thank you.
here. Very
Thank
much
you. I
audible,
think
sir.
we are live as well. Yep. Great. So friends, welcome to this session of the mini paid group. Yes, I was supposed to take a break this week, but then a request topic by Dr. Adarsh since last week was actually clicking on my mind. And it is not that very commonly we see so many deaths happening in a very short span of time. Uh, India has seen more than 2.5 lakh deaths in the just COVID wave 2. In the COVID wave 1, there were less than 1 lakh deaths. Approximately 3,40,000 is the figure as of now. But then, yes, it has left. The today's session is actually about the scenarios where many of the people have been left rendered, especially the kids, by the death of their either one parent or orphaned by the death of both the parents. Then they actually don't know what exactly is going to be their future. And then if we talk of the other scenario where the adult family members, not the children alone, are left with the bread earning member of their family actually leaving the world, and they're left with only the scattered dust to collect in that case. And then there is a scenario when we encounter deaths normally otherwise also. Sometimes a senior member of the family having a large amount of property expires, maybe our father, maybe our mother, maybe someone uh, bigger to us, elder to us in one generation. Maybe we are self-equipped to do so, but then there are certain things which are to be taken care of in such a scenario. So today's presentation is all about such amalgamations and combinations. So I'll be discussing as you go on. The total presentation time should be close to 75 to 80 minutes. So I hope I stick to that time. So all my presentations will always begin with thanking the Lord Almighty who's given me much more than what I deserve. And when it comes to finance, I have to thank my dad as well, who has been instrumental in teaching me the clinical part of finance. And he was, again, one of the big experts in succession planning and, say, will phenomenon. And he actually was a big master of that. So this is my brief biodata. You all are aware of it by now. So we all have been witnessing such scenarios where actually doctors are left just cuddling with the kids who have lost both their parents. And again, one of this slide is again very heart-wrenching. It actually says out a lot via its picture only, that children calling out for their parents who are no longer in this world. So this is MPG webinar number 24. We're coming to the end of MPG by 30th June. So topic, as I told you, COVID-19 deaths in orphan children or family members. These are the unusual scenarios. What happens to nomination or the succession of assets, movable and immovable both. There are certain laws which are governing such scenarios. We have to know what is nomination, what is legal here, and forget COVID-19. We all know this is a situation which can happen otherwise as well. Somebody in our family passes away and we don't know about certain scenarios. So this is applicable to that as well. So my presentation is divided into various parts. We'll take part about the kids part, then the Succession Act and its logistics, then the nomination and the legal here, and then summarizing the whole process, what is going to be, and in the end, what all documentation you need to take care of after the passing away of a elder or an adult family member. All those things you need to take care, which you might not be aware of, and yes, they are handy for us. So let's begin without much ado. So as of now, as of today morning, 4th June, total number of COVID deaths are 3,40,000 plus. So less than 1 lakh expired in the first COVID wave, but COVID 2, as expected, the wave was pretty harsh. Fortunately or unfortunately, the government has just identified only 577 children orphaned by COVID-19. Whereas the NCPCR data, the NCPCR is the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, has given a data from last March to this May 29th. It submitted its data in Supreme Court on 31st of May, Monday 31st May, it submitted the 9346 children who actually lost both parents or were abandoned in pandemic. So it is not exclusive of only the orphan children, but the abandoned children as well. But then this number may actually be more. We always get a very limited data in such situations. And there might be children who lost only one of their parents. So then this is a scenario. So this is the data which has been uploaded on the Bal Swaraj portal as well, which is which has been newly launched, and which includes 1742 children who lost both parents, 7464 in a single parent household, and that is a huge number. 140 have been abandoned from the past 1 year. So imagine so many families going berserk. I lost my dad. I am a grown-up person at the age of 44. I lost my dad 30th June 2019, exactly 2 years back, and I was 42 then. Imagine I have not still been able to come to terms with that. Not that I was dependent upon him for my needs or for my money. I was earning handsomely, but yes, only the mere feeling of having a shelter over your head was gone. And I've still not, me and my family have still not mentally come to terms with that loss. So imagine the children who are not mature enough, who are not even able to understand what kind of a situation they might be undergoing. So this was a topic inspired of me having 4-5 personal problems in this week, because of which I postponed the sessions of this week for the paid group. I still decided to take up this topic because I felt that this needed an urgent intervention. And again, it has been fast-tracked to YouTube. It will be there on YouTube on 8th June. So the Bal Swaraj portal has actually identified children as well and divided into various age groups. Imagine 1,500 children in 4 to 7, 3,700 plus in 8 to 13, 1620 in 14 to 15, and 1,700 plus in 16 to 17 year age group. So from 18 to 13 and 14 to 17, almost the number is similar. So that is what is actually surprising. So many children won't be having parents on their head, at least both of the parents. So then NCPCR in its affidavit on 31st May actually gave a few recommendations as well. And they gave the government guidelines as well that yes, even those who are living with a single parent should be given financial assistance. And yes, various state governments have announced that also. I'll be taking that up. So these recommendations are to make sure that the schooling is not affected, since many of them might be in private schools as well. And we all know the private schools did not leave the education or the tuition fees even for a single month. Maybe they curtailed down on the transport fees, but they never curtailed down on the tuition fee or the education fees which they have been charging. So also the recommendations have been passed to state governments, the DEOs and schools to take steps that those school fees would be borne by the government, the state government, so that the kids have a hassle-free childhood, at least full of education. So then the various recommendations and instructions also include, obviously, if they are not, if they're followed on ground or not, that is a different scenario altogether. But then the recommendations and the instructions are, in case of death of one or both parents, the expenditure will be borne by the government under the Section RTE Act and Right to Education. For this, any guardian or any member of the family can approach the CWC or the Child Welfare Committee, which is there in every district of India. So based on those proceedings, the CWC will actually make a list and accordingly pass on the same. Yes, the paperwork might take a little bit long, but then who's in a hurry? The problem is that the kids are not going to go to school for another 2-3 months minimum, considering the fear of COVID-3 wave as well. So then similarly, the school will not actually trouble the child, and they should raise the demand as per the list to the government, and they will not trouble them. And this is the steps which are for primary and middle education, for classes 1 to 8. For classes above 8, which is beyond the scope of RTE, of course, because the basic education is still 8th standard only minimum. So then the guidelines have been requested to the state government to be issued from their part, so that they can either provide the scholarship or provide a mechanism whereby the reimbursing of the education expenditure can be reversed. And the problem is that if some of you have seen it, recently on social media, actually so many posts have been put up which are illegally offering up such orphan children for adoption. Mind you, adoption is a very trivial legal process in India, and you just can't take these orphan children. They get into the queue, which are the children which are already there in the adoption centers will be there. Again, it is like a first in first out system or a FIFO system. It is not like a LIFO system, last in first out. So the kids who have been or maybe assigned to these adoption centers, they actually get in the queue over there, and they cannot be actually passed over these part. So again, there is a huge legal process behind it. You just can't do that. So don't follow the social media posts, which are actually, we all know what Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram University are up to when it comes to forwards. We all know most of the news which are forwarded are fake. So check out the authenticity. And the problem is that such children might be, say, a cause for illegal adoption and child trafficking as well. So then you need to take care of this part as well. Children are commodities. They cannot be just about taken by anyone. So they also have rights, including their property rights. So you just can't be detached from their family. The biggest thing is that many of such children who are orphaned are from middle class to rich class. They are not only from poor class. And this is a comparative difference in the COVID death scenario. Yes, many of the deaths have happened in poor counterparts as well. But then the adoption process should not be a hurried one, because otherwise there will be more of disruption in the child's gradual coming to terms with the scenario, which unusual scenario which the child is facing. So again, you shouldn't be, or you wouldn't like to be a part of the organized crime. So I believe don't go to that. Then, as I said, many of the cases have been reported where both the parents have been lost and the children have been pushed into trafficking. The child racket is very common in India, and unfortunately and pitifully, the cases of incest or sexual relationships have shot up. Fathers raping their daughters, brothers abusing their sisters. Unfortunate, but yes, this is true, and it has been reported in news in various sections of the society, in various newspapers as well. So it is heartbreaking that the government agencies also find it very difficult to handle such scenarios. And a child's mind is like a kacha ghada. We all know whatever shape we want to give, we can give it. And a trauma inflicted at childhood sometimes goes on to whole age. Any fear that is instilled in the child in the young age, which cannot be just taken off that easily, even with the greatest of the efforts. So because children are very sensitive, they actually need long-term sustainable care, psychosomatic relationship, medical nutritional support, because ultimately they are the future of India. And if we actually take this scenario seriously, we are going to realize this thing that yes, it is there. So then what is the government doing about it? So for the non-institutional child care, each district is granted 10 lakhs every year under the ICPS, Integrated Child Protection Scheme. Now it has been renamed to Vatsalya. So the DM can use this money to ensure support to families providing care to such children. And this is existing before COVID also. Before COVID, that's actually happened. So many of us were not aware of this as well. So because hundreds of minors have lost now their parents, so probably I believe that this grant might be increased. Again, health is a state subject in India. So it is primarily the responsibility of the state governments only to increase this share. So yes, various state governments have been actually announcing various schemes, as I just received a query in group 1 that what exactly is being done about such. So let me tell you a few states which are doing something. The Andhra Pradesh government has announced 10 lakh ex gratia amount for the kids who have lost their parents due to COVID-19. And the scheme is available for children below the age of 18 years. Of course, for the minor children, the Kerala government has announced a special package. In this, minor children will get 3 lakh lump sum along with monthly monetary assistance of 2,000 till they turn 18. So Tamil Nadu government has fixed rupees 5 lakh fixed deposit for minor children, and which will be given to them once they turn 18. Also, their education expenses will be borne by them, and a monthly financial aid of rupees 300 to the guardian till the age of 18, and a committee to set up the implementation of such schemes. My state, Punjab government has also given 1,500 per month to all kids COVID-19 till the age of 21 years. But again, they'll be given free education in the state-run institutes. So the UP government has also announced to take up the responsibility. A task force is being formed to identify this. The Delhi government has taken up rupees 2,500 per month to all minor children till the age of 25 in Delhi. So Maharashtra again has formed a task force. So yes, this is in a very early stage. Last week, a PIL was filed, I think around 22nd or 23rd of May. PIL were filed in Supreme Court, and the matter is still sub judice as to allow or as to give 5 lakh or 10 lakh amount to each and every deceased minor child. So again, Assam has announced rupees 10 lakh to each district and state. Chhattisgarh has a separate yojana or a scheme under this Matari Dular Yojana, in which they'll be bearing expenses of orphan kids, and children from classes 1 to 8 will get a monthly stipend of 500, and 9 to 12 will get rupees 1,000 per month. Himachal Pradesh, similar to Punjab, will be similar to Delhi, will be getting rupees 2,500 per month till they turn major. So again, from Jharkhand, they have rather provided with the toll-free numbers as well in their state, WhatsApp numbers as well, wherein actually you can report about the genuine cases to the government. The Karnataka state has also introduced a helpline number. And yes, COVID care centers and hospitals have been set for infected children separately by state of Karnataka. So the Madhya Pradesh government, rupees 5,000 per month. The Rajasthan also has launched a different scheme, namely Palanhar Yojana, in which rupees 500 to all COVID orphan children below 18, and additional sum of rupees 1,000 will also be provided under for what it has not been mentioned. So Uttarakhand under the Vatsalya Yojana, rupees 3,000 per month to orphan children. And again, the education expenses are borne by the state government in the state-run institutes. As against the recommendations of NTPCR, they actually wanted that wherever the education is, it should be continued. Again, that process might be taking a little bit longer. But yes, I think eventually these things should come into place. So next, come to the next section about it. That yes, what exactly does this cause? We all know COVID-19 has increased all the economic and financial uncertainties. And so many people are actually living in life of jeopardy. They don't know actually what will be the next day bringing for them. And again, estate plans, succession plans, all are going haywire. And the problem is that most of the deaths in India have been in middle class and rich Indians, and lesser in poorer counterparts. Obviously, the middle class and the rich Indians might be having a roof over their head already. They might be having someone in their family to take care of that part already. The only thing is they need someone to guide them. They cannot manage the whole house. So in those cases, a guardian might be needed. So then what is the system like? What is the process like? What are the formalities like? We'll be discussing in the coming slides. And the worst part is that many of the parents who actually expired were in the young age and they left without any will. Registered or unregistered, that is a secondary question, but that undermines the importance of a will. Nobody actually 1.5 years back in January 2020, when people welcomed New Year, nobody expected. They believed that 2020 was going to be the best year of their life. Nobody envisaged that so many deaths, 340,000 deaths will be happening actually because of COVID. Remember, we all made fun of COVID-1 because COVID-1 did not affect India that bad. And we felt that because we have inborn resistance because of malaria and probably having quinine in our bloodstreams, so we are resistant to COVID as well. And we actually didn't take any of such guidelines for, and we took every guideline for granted. And see the result. In less than 2 months, April start and June start, in less than 2 months, 2.5 lakh of deaths. And so many households have been actually destroyed. Just one family member, if it leaves, the whole family structure is destroyed. Ask me. I told you example of my dad, who was still in his 70s, almost at the age of 75. And people will say average Indian age is 78. So your dad left at the right time. Probably not. But yes, even the one family member going away, and if it is a young one, which has happened in today's scenario, what exactly can happen? So now the number of people writing their wills is on rise. Via will, how do you distribute your bequest or distribute your immovable property, like your land, like your flat, like your house, is actually of utmost importance. But then there are scenarios when there is no will. We'll be discussing all such scenarios. Who are the, say, ones who will be the beneficiaries of such? So just pay attention, and I hope you take home a lot of points once I am at the end of the presentation. And you can post your queries in the FB page. I have two volunteers who are actually taking care of the questions over there, and whatever there are in my chat box, you can post it over here. Those who are attending it live on Zoom, they can post it in the chat box or ask me live at the end of the presentation. As usual, I'll be answering them. So what does the law say about when there is no will, which is most likely in all these situations where such deaths have happened, especially in the young age, very close by in close family relations. We have seen deaths happening as young as 27-year-old, 28-year-old, 32-year-old, 35-year-old, 40 plus. All those deaths are happening. From April 6 last year, 2020, to March 13 this year, 2021, almost 11 months, I lost 8 of my family members in my first relationship, all included. So my bua, my fufa, my nani, all those relationships included. So I even lost 8 family members. So it's not that I have not suffered at those hands, but yes, there are certain scenarios where we need to understand what exactly will happen if there is no will. So we all are governed mostly by the Hindu Succession Act or the Indian Succession Act. Let's see what is the scenario. So efficient succession planning is very important, because we need to make sure that whomsoever we want to deliver the things what we want to are actually reaching them, especially when it comes to immovable properties. The problem is that people living in metros, they actually are governed by cooperative laws of the state sometimes, and which provide for the nomination of the house and not for the legal heir or not for the will is this. What exactly is the difference between a nominee and the one which actually pledges by a will? We'll be taking up in this coming scenario. Dr. Adarsh, can you please erase these pencil marks? They are actually erasing over there. So a nomination is not same as the will. We can give nomination for our shares, bank deposits, mutual funds, bank lockers, but the rules for immovable properties are different. Can you believe, as per the RTI raised in the parliament, deposits worth 5,000 crores plus were lying unclaimed for 10 years or more with just the scheduled banks or the government banks. I'm not talking about the private banks as such. This is an unclaimed money where actually the account holder left, had no nominee, and the nominees or the legal heirs didn't take the process, didn't want to follow the process, which is a long one, paperwork driven one, and they, or maybe sometimes the succession certificate one, is sometimes takes as good as a year in Indian courts. So they actually didn't bother to go about that task. So then imagine 5,000 crore plus of money. So this is a huge amount. And considering that banking usually is by educated people, not by uneducated people. Then educated people started from 2017 onwards, immediately after demonetization, when the Jan Dhan bank accounts were launched. So before that, banking was a sojourn only of the educated people. So agar educated logon ka ye halat hai uneducated ka, you can imagine what exactly would be there. So the only thing is we need to really make sure that the nominee is a very important thing when it comes to property inheritance laws. So yes, the difference has to be clear. What is a nominee and what is a legal heir? So let's see, what is a nomination? So nomination is a process by which you actually authorize someone to receive the assets on his or her behalf. So nominee will come into operation only after the death of the owner, and that specified asset is transferred in the name of the nominee. So what are the rights of nominees and legal heirs separately? The nominee becomes the owner of the asset. It is a perception, but no. Nominee is actually the custodian of the asset and not the owner of the asset. The real owner of the asset is the legal heir or legal heir, whatever you can say. So the banking rules, the demat account rules, or the share markets, they appoint a nominee. and the amounts are transferred to the nominee as such. But when it comes to immovable property, that goes by the will or by the legal hire in such cases. So again, even in insurance company sector, it pays the amount of claim to the nominee. So then, because the legal hire can still challenge the nominee. If the legal hire and the nominee are the same person, then there is no dispute. But if the legal hire says that the amount lawfully belongs to him, he can challenge it in the court, and then it becomes the responsibility of the nominee to actually hand over the claim amount to the legal hires. So if you have, say, both the things appointed to two different persons, a person actually gives in a will, all my assets will be transferred, immovable and movable, to my legal hire, my son, elder son A. But in his bank account, his nominee is his younger son, son B. So once his death happens, whenever it does, the bank will transfer the amount to the younger son B since he was the nominee. But the legal hire A, elder son, son A, can challenge the same in the court, and then the younger son B has to give that amount to younger son A, because the will mentioned transfer of all the movable and immovable assets. So it is the responsibility of the nominee to do so. So the Supreme Court also has a landmark judgment of 1983, Sarbati Devi. So it is the nominee and the trustee are liable to hand it over to the legal hires. Again, deposits to bank accounts as well. The payment is given to nominee, but then it is the duty of the nominee to give it to the legal hire. So again, but the problem comes in bigger states when the residential properties are governed by cooperative housing societies, and they are governed by the laws, and the rules are, society laws are different for each state, especially the metropolitans. So again, Maharashtra Cooperative Society Act Section 30 says the society is legally allowed to transfer the property in the name of the nominee if the owner has submitted the nomination form to the society. However, such a nominee who is registered as the owner in the records of the housing society represents the legal hires. So it is the legal hire who have beneficial owner rights, ruled the Bombay High Court in the, again, a landmark judgment of Ramdas Shivram Satur, which dragged on for 25 years. So the beneficial ultimate ownership rights belong to the legal hires only. I'm sorry. Just a miss. Just a minute, please. I'm sorry. Okay. So this was the case which actually dragged on for 24 years, but the Bombay High Court also ruled off in the say favor of the legal hire only. Again, the provident fund dues, the nominee will become the legal and the beneficial owner, but then the same has to be transferred to the legal hire. I'll tell you my dad's example in this case. My mom was the nominee in the account, but then she was the legal hire as well, according to the will given by the dad. But still, in spite of being the nominee, because the amount was a good hefty amount, so the bank wanted a legal hire certificate or an affidavit in that form from the court. It was to be by the attested by the JMIC and not just by the notary public. So we had to give that as well. Then only the check was transferred in my mom's name. So again, the Bombay High Court has given a decision. Again, nominee can become the owner of the share, but then it can be overruled again. The legal hire still has the upper right. So if you have to choose between a nominee and a legal hire, the legal hire has a better ownership right than the nominee, and the nominee is accountable to the legal hire or the successor. But still, it does not mean that you don't nominate. Many a times, the nominee and the legal hire is the same. Some elderly people would actually nominate their wife, and the same would be there in their will as well. So if it is the same, then it is no issue. But then sometimes the problem comes that if they are not aware of this scenario, they will say, "Mera bank ka paisa mere wife ko jayega, मेरा ये घर जो है मेरे उसको जाएगा, बड़े बेटे को एक और प्लॉट है जो वो छोटे बेटे को जाएगा. So technically, if he has willed that those two things, the amount of the bank will also be distributed in the two children who are the two legal heirs. Technically, he forgot to leave anything for his wife. And he was thinking that I have a good bank balance of 50-60 lakhs and that amount belongs to my wife. So sometimes this kind of situation can happen. So it is very essential to make nomination of all your assets. These days, mutual funds, shares, whenever you buy via, firstly, the KYC is mandatory. And when you buy, it is mandatory to give a nomination in such a scenarios. And even for the bank accounts as well, even for your PPF, any kind of financial transaction you do these days since the past 2-3 years, it is absolutely mandatory to do such nomination by the financial institution, be it the bank or be it anyone else. So then it will ensure that the property does not remain unclaimed and become subject to litigation. As I showed you, just the banking amount of 5,000 crores plus. There might be crores and crores of properties also lying unclaimed. या फिर वो गैर कानूनी कब्जा हो गया होगा उन पे. So such things are very common. So again, you need to remember shares, demat account, provident fund dues, insurance dues, the nominee will become the owner of these assets because they don't actually go by the will. They go by the nominee. But yes, the legal heir can still challenge them later on. And as per the court judgments, they actually can win as well. So unless it is a mutual understanding, yes, that it is given to them. Again, for the people to actually know about this thing that the legal heir actually holds all right, they should also be aware कि मैं nominee का पैसा भी मेरा ही है. They should be knowing about this thing. So again, the nominees cannot dispose the asset for their benefit even they have taken over it. They'll have to then pay back to the legal heir. So whether the will is there or not, most of us are governed by Hindu Succession Act 1956. And when we talk of Hindus like HUF, it includes Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs. So rest of the Indian population, except the Muslims, comes under the Indian Succession Act 1925. The predominant communities in this are Parsis and Christians. The Muslims have their own Shariat law, which I mentioned many times as well in various webinars. So they have their own Shariat law, which is governing their Succession Act. So let us see succession, how it happens. If the succession is through a will, what kind of a scenario is there? So if there is a will, then it is a total hassle-free thing. Just prepare a will and better get it registered. A registered will, like say witnessed consent form, has a better signs, better say acceptability, or better chances of being not proven as wrong or being proven as correct. So those who fall under, you can actually, as per the Hindu Succession Act, you can actually bequeath your properties even other than your blood relatives as well. So you can just via the execution of your will, you can do that. But when it comes to nominee in the bank or in any financial transaction, उसमें आपको blood relative ही देना पड़ेगा, which is your immediate, your wife, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, whatever. Even your kids under guardian can be your account nominees. They don't allow your friends to be a nominee. But in this case, anyone can bequeath his property, gift his property to anyone as he wishes. So then the only thing is that sometimes a probate has to be taken from the court. A probate is a certification from a court which actually proves its authenticity. I'll deal with more in the coming slides. So the executor of the will actually go about it and then bequeath the same and can make sure that the will was actually genuine and was not tampered with. That is the situation we need to remember. So then second scenario is if the succession is without a will, the deceased doesn't make a proper will when he before he dies. So if he doesn't do it, then as per the Hindu Succession Act 1956, which was amended in 2005, all the legal heirs, all the class 1 legal heirs who are there, they are, say, rightful owners of that. For example, somebody, a male member of the family who expires, has a house. He has 2 kids, 2 sons, 1 married daughter. So he expired and a wife, of course. So he expired in the COVID scenario, and he left without a will. So who will be the owners of that? As per the Hindu Succession Act, is the owners, the property will be equally inherited by 4 people: wife, elder son, younger son, married daughter. Pre-2005, the Hindu Succession Act did not allow the daughters to take the share from inherited property. But after 2005, any property, unless specified otherwise, if the father makes a will that this will go equally between my 2 sons and my wife, then the daughter cannot claim a share because the father has already made a will. So if it is not a will, then 25% of the share will go to that. In case there is a scenario, for example, there was 1 son only who expired long time back. The husband and wife both died in COVID. What is there? Then there is a class of class 2 relatives, then class 3 relatives, agnates and cognates as we call them. So let's see those things. So when it comes to each of the shares, sons and daughters and parents will have equal shares. A spouse will be entitled to 1 share. Someone having more than 1 surviving spouse, in case of Hindu Marriage Act, usually in this Hindu Marriage Act, the second spouse is technically invalid unless you divorce the first one. So if they have a living surviving spouse, more than 1, both will get only 1 portion of the property, not divisible into multiple parts. So even their successor, आगे उनके बच्चे भी हैं, again, similar part. So for example, a male member who passes away has 2 wives and 1 son each from them. It will go 50% to the spouses and 50% to the sons. So meaning 25, 25, 25 each. So if a house has been left without a will, a female heir is entitled to claim a share and stay in the house. Only the male heir has a right to divide the property and the female heir cannot call for a partition. So despite leaving a will, it is necessary for the legal heirs to still obtain a succession certificate from the court, which is mandatory. So what is a succession certificate? Again, it is a tedious job under the Indian Succession Act, but then this is the way the system works because there are a lot of cases of fraud which are happening. So it is a legal document which authorizes the people to represent the deceased individual. Again, जो succession certificate से करता है, he inherits the property, but he inherits the debts and the liabilities as well. अगर loans देने वाले हैं, तो he will have to pay back the loans also on behalf of that. अगर gain है, तो loss भी है इसमें. So what exactly is the procedure? You make an application to the magistrate in a local court or a high court, depending upon the scenario. So a will does prevent a lot of problems, and it actually ensures a smooth passage to the beneficiaries or the benefactors. So what exactly is a will? What you need to take care while making a will? So a will is actually a kind of a succession planning where you actually distribute to the individuals which you have chosen without any disputes. So intestate succession and testamentary succession. Intestate means when you have passed on without making a will, and otherwise a testamentary succession with a testifactor where there was a witness to that. There are the 2 ways which the property can be passed on. So if intestate succession occurs, means there is no legal will. The deceased passed away without any will. All properties are supposed to be passed on to spouse, children, or other family members, while testamentary will happen when it is distributed according to the terms specified in the will. So remember these 2 terms, intestate succession and testamentary succession. Testamentary means when the testator has been done, will लिखी गई है और उसका एक proof है. Intestate means when anybody passes without making a will. So how do you write the will? The following people are needed. A testator who will write your will as you dictate, can be handwritten, can be typed. Then there is an executor of the will, usually a lawyer or a CA, who delegates to ensure that the property is reasonably or responsibly distributed as the individual wants. Then 2 witnesses to justify. Remember, this does not need to be on a stamp paper like a gift deed. It need not be on a stamp paper. But yes, if it is on a stamp paper, yes, it actually adds authenticity to it. It need not be registered with the local registering authority. But if it is registered, it again adds a bit of authenticity more to the one, and along with the date when it has been mentioned over there. So all the above mentioned are to be identified who can write your will. So be very specific and clear about your distribution of property, and always write a specific date. And sometimes people will go on, आज मैंने will बनाई है, suppose 5 years down the lane, and my benefactor comes to know about it, and he starts behaving as if he's not worried about anything because he is going to be given every property. And the younger son, let's suppose I have a younger son also, and he turns out to be more genuine to me, and I wish to give him something else as well other than what I have given, so I can modify that will as well. So you don't need to actually modify the whole will. You can add a supplement. That supplement is known as a codicil. So once you add a codicil, you can add codicils multiple amount of times. But if there are too many supplementary changes if you added too many conditional clauses, it's better that you rechange the will so that there is no confusion later on. So all the aspects of the will should be there. I hope I have discussed this. This was the first topic actually we took up in the mini paid group when I started in January. If I think paid group member would be aware of this. So don't forget to list all your assets and liabilities, both movable and immovable assets as well, all your savings as well. So we all know many of the investments are electronically now, so all should be included in your will. All what you have acquired, purchased, generated in your lifetime, house, land, car, vehicles, jewelry, cash, movable and immovable assets, all are to be included in over there. So remember, whatever you do, you only do these things that you don't want someone to actually make a forgery, or someone to actually make a misuse of your property, and what you want to give to your benefactors, actually they are given in such a scenario that they are not over there. So this is a crucial move, because your legal heirs might get embroiled in a legal battle, and sometimes people might lose say their right to those things which are their rightful or say genuine rights. So now inheritance, in case there are multiple properties, there sometimes the problem can arise when the person who actually makes a will has multiple properties and does not specify who will acquire which property. So then the testator who writes a will should actually specify and should make it clear to the individual that yes, the properties are assigned to a particular individuals. So again, the problems can arise if a single property is passed on to more than one person. So like in shares, like a multi-storied building, if somebody is living in a metropolitan, you need to specify which floor belongs to which individual. So as we know, different floors have different stamp duty or registration in metropolitans. So we need to make sure that such kind of disputes should not be arising after the individual's death. And again, because the one who owns the property is actually owns the responsibility also for the maintenance of the property, and for payment of taxes or any kind of renovation or any kind of similar expenses which are to be paid to the government of India or the state government in this case. So what is the importance of a will? People will seldom write their wills because they believe that automatically to heir ko chale hi jayega, legal heir ko. The legal heirs are also known as legatees in the legal language. But then sometimes they don't get the desired. So you have a legal right and insurance to distribute your property if you have a will. So every person must decide in his life, his or her life, who is going to be the ultimate beneficiary. And it is crucial to figure out who will legally inherit the house, whether it is a legitimate heir or a nominee. The two may be the same person, as I said. The nominee and the legal heir might be the same, but it is not always the case. So a nominee might be the one who is chosen while you are alive to look after your properties and savings after the death. But the legal heir inherits all the properties, and the legal heir comes into action after the death. The nominee can exist during the individual's life as well. So just to give you a further clarification or classification, what exactly is a nominee and a legal heir? So nominee is a person who actually is a custodian of the assets in the event of a death. He is not the owner as specified by the Hindu Succession Act 1956. So the legal heir is properly the successor who is mentioned in the will as well. So he is the trustee, the legal heir is the beneficiary. So he is the hands who authorized to receive the amount or asset, but ultimately he is the custodian and he has to pass the same to the legal heir. So the legal heir ultimately owns the amount or the asset, whatever it is. Even if it is a share, provident fund, which goes to the nominee, the legal heir has the ultimate final right to that. So just to specify again, a little bit of repetition here, but yes, it is mandatory that you actually understand the same very, very clearly. So nominee is a representative in a specific matter. So he receives the properties of the sum, but he is not the owner. He acts as the custodian of the wealth and passes to the legal heir who has been chosen by the deceased as his successor. So again, as I mentioned, the nominee has to be from the immediate family. So any nomination if you make in the name of other than family member, other than the blood relative, the primary blood relative, it is not valid. So if the person does not have a family, she can appoint someone as a nominee, but once the person does have a family, the previous nomination becomes void. In the session that I took up just before the year turned over in December 2020, I had given the clear-cut nomination forms in the banking which are applicable DA1, DA2, DA3. So DA1, when you open up account or any banking related transactions, DA1 is the default form in which you give the nomination for your new account. So DA2 is via you cancel your nomination, and DA3 is when you want to change your nomination from A to B or B to A. So DA1 means you give nomination, DA2 means you cancel your nomination, DA3 means you alter your nomination. So I've taken that part in much detail. I think basics part 5, whatever the video was in December, you can check out over there. So what is the definition of legal heir as per Hindu Succession Act? So legal heir is entitled to become the ultimate owner of the properties, and his name is listed in the deceased person's will, and the rules of succession will actually apply to the person. So his right is indivisible in nature. So the legal heirs of a deceased who is married can be his spouse, children, and parents. Whereas in case of an unmarried deceased person, his parents and siblings would be the ultimate legal heirs. Remember this: for an unmarried deceased person, parents and siblings would be the ultimate legal heirs. Even for a married person who has a widowed mother, his property is inherited by his mother as well. So key differences between nominee and legal heir. So nominee is a person who is nominated. A little bit of repetition, but I think it is necessary here to remember such things. So nominee is the custodian who receives. The legal heir actually inherits. So nominee acts as the trustee and passes on the property to the legal heir. The legal heir is the ultimate beneficiary who has the ownership rights. So nominee is one authorized to receive. The legal heir is the one who has the ultimate right to the assets. So nomination decides the legal nominee, but will specifies the legal heir. So if there is no will, the provision of the succession law shall apply. So by and large, the legal heir and the nominee actually determine two different persons usually. But again, one person can be both nominee and legal heir at the same time. For example, someone has one son. The son can be the nominee in the bank account, and the son can be the nominee or the legal heir as well. So again, it is dependent upon the individual and the scenario and the situation as well. So one of the benefits of making a will is that you can amend it as much as you like. And if you wanted to amend it further and you passed away in between, the last modified will, having the last will supplement known as the codicil, will be the one which will be the most valid one and which will be the picked one last in will be the first out, the LIFO system. The first in would be invalid in such a case. So I told you about the codicil, which amends but does not replace it. It is only for modifying a particular clause. So if you can change your whole will without making a new will and must be signed exactly. So again, if you make a codicil, the two witnesses are mandatory and need not be the original ones. The ones who signed the original will can be two different people, and the ones, or maybe one of them passed away. Let's suppose maybe they were father's friends and one of them passed away, or maybe both of them passed away. And now when you're making a codicil, you mention that all the terms and provisions mentioned in my original will as against mentioned had gone to my son, elder son A. Now I bequeath that to my younger son B. Signed in the presence of testator, signed in the presence of executor, and signed by two witnesses. The two witnesses signed. So the whole things that are mentioned, the whole things that were bequeathed to elder son A in the will 1 have now been transferred to younger son B. You must have seen this kind of filmy scenario. बाबूजी की नई वसीयत, इस नई वसीयत के मुताबिक मैं इसका मालिक हूं. Those things, obviously in these days, things don't happen. They used to happen a lot in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s movies. So, but yes, these things are an important thing. So a will, legally it is not required to be registered, but yes, to prove its authenticity and to safeguard your beneficiary's interest so that it is not modified, the same is registered in the local registration office. So it is always better to go about that path so that there are no chances of any dispute, and the property owners can take the help of a lawyer who can prepare the will and ensure that there are no disputes arising to the properties which have been addressed in the will. So this was the image. This was the first image actually I came across when I usually add certain images, and I wanted to actually postpone this session. But when this image came up, this image actually resembles my younger daughter who's 4 years plus. So she also keeps on walking with a teddy bear in her hand. So this actually made my eyes moist, and I never wanted to postpone this session. Thanks to Dr. Adarsh that I could actually pick up this topic out of the queue. And again, it will be fast tracked to YouTube as well ahead of other sessions on 8 June. So let's talk about such kids now. When we see such kids who actually use the circle to actually sometime maybe mark the distance for a COVID shield, a COVID safe distance, or maybe as their playing zone. Remember, they're studying alone and sitting in the ground. You can imagine their plight. It is actually a very, very painful scenario just to envisage. And I pray that all of us and all our families remain safe from this dreaded COVID-19. And there are no further third, fourth, fifth waves, and no further COVID-26, COVID-32 as well. I really pray and hope and wish for everyone. So let's see these acts which are actually applicable. As I said, there are various succession laws in India. The children who are in such situations, partially orphaned or fully orphaned, they have their own rights. And as I mentioned, there are very less from the poor counterparts, but there are more from the richer and the middle class counterparts. So the Hindu Succession Act 1956 applies to Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists. So all those come under this. So there are separate rights for adoption of children and maintenance allowance to be given to wife under the HMA Act 1956. So the Parsis and the Christians, they come under the ISA, Indian Succession Act 1925, the British Act. And the Muslims have their own personal law known as the Shariat, which is 1937, again, a British time law. So which governs the law for succession in case of Muslims. So what if the will is not present? According to Hindu Succession Act, the same is distributed equally amongst the legal heirs unless specified in the will. If somebody has a house and has a widowed wife after his death and 2 children and 1 daughter, as I said, so it will be irrespective of the daughter is married or not married. If he has passed away after 2005, the same would be divided equally amongst all the progenies and the wife. Yes, the further, for example, someone has, the mother has already passed away. Someone has 1 son and 3 daughters. All the 3 daughters are married. he passes away without a will. So in this case, the property will be transferred in the hands of all the 4 kids. But yes, the 3 daughters can give in writing that we have no interest in such a property and give a NOC, and the same would be 100% transferred then in the name of the son only, who becomes the only legal heir of the property. So under the Muslim law, 50% of the property goes to the widow, irrespective of the number of other legal heirs, and the rest is shared in equal parts between the children, whatever number of children they have. So their law is something different in this regard. So we are mostly concerned with the Hindu Succession Act, since majority of us fall under this category currently in this situation. So I'll be discussing that, because if I start divulging all other acts, it will take a lot of time. So as per the Hindu Succession Act 1956, legal heirs can be of 3 types: class 1, class 2, and class 3. As I mentioned, the class 3 are known as agnates and cognates. So the direct descendants are the class 1 relationships. Where the class 1 are not present, class 2 become the legal heirs. The class 1 can be son, daughter, widow, mother, son of a predeceased son, son, daughter of a predeceased daughter, or a widow of a predeceased son. So class 2 can be father's brother, father's sister, son's daughter, the son, daughter's son, daughter. So agnates and cognates, if class 1 and class 2 are not present, so class agnates and cognates can be the one. They even cannot be the blood relatives as well. So let's see. I think I have the chart. Yes, I have the chart. So just see the charts. I'm going to pause the presentation here for a minute so that you can also pause it if you want to see who actually fall under the class 1 heirs, class 2 heirs, and agnates and cognates. So the direct descendants or the direct lineage under class 1, the indirect lineage, or the one, if any of the class 1 is not present, then only class 2 takes over. Any of the class 1 and class 2 are not present, then agnates and cognates take over. So I've given the examples as well over here. So all these agnates are relationship through the males, but not by blood or adoption. So these can be relations through marriages as well. Cognates are relationships through the females. So usually agnates can be father's brother's son, or even father's brother's widow. In cognates, father's sister's son or brother's daughter's son. The relationship gets complex. Of course, any of these has to obtain a succession certificate for that. If they want to bequeath, if they want to say get any property in their name. So what are the properties and the various rules regarding them? For example, if it is a self-acquired property, I've discussed about inherited, joint properties, and self-acquired properties in a previous session. So as per the self-acquired property, you can give to anyone through the will. But if the will is not made, then legal heirship determines how the deceased properties should be divided. I gave you sufficient examples for this in the previous slides. So in case of inherited property, the ancestral property especially, the rights of deceased, rights of successors of deceased overrides all other modes, including the will. Because if, for example, it is an ancestral property of someone's father who has passed away, their sons will, or the progenies will have the first right to the properties than their mothers or the deceased wives, because it is an ancestral property. So all members of immediate family get the right to equal share to the property in such a scenario. So for a joint owned property, which is self-acquired, the surviving owner becomes a sole owner after the death of the co-owner. If the property is in 2 names or 3 names, the other 2 or other single person become the owner in case of a death of such a situation. In those cases, their sons and daughters do not become a member of such a property. You need to, or unless specified in the ownership clauses otherwise. So if in cases of a succession law, in case of a female death, so the property is distributed as per the priority. Firstly, sons and daughters. Then secondly, the preference is the heirs of the husband, means husbands, again, legal heirs. If the sons and daughters are not there, then father's brothers or father's sisters, or maybe then thirdly among mother and father. Then fourthly among heirs of father, and lastly upon the heirs of the mother. So this is the sequence which is followed in case of a female death who's holding massive property. So if somebody has any property, if a female has a property from her ancestral father or mother, in that case, the first right will be of the heirs of her father and not her husband, if she wants to bequeath any property in such a case, because it is her maternal property in such scenarios. So if she has acquired any property for her husband, then the first right will be of the heirs of her husband if she wants to bequeath it to via will, or if she leaves without having any will and she doesn't have any sons and daughters. So what are the inheritance rights of children, especially those who are orphaned or not? So any son via birth has a right in his father and grandfather's property by birth, as we discussed about the ancestral property laws in my previous webinar. So the son has equal rights as does his father in the ancestral property. So as I mentioned, so if the father has a self-acquired property and he dies intestate means without any will, the son, he's a class 1 higher, will have succession rights equal to his living mother, sister, and grandmother and brother for a self-acquired property. But for ancestral property, he'll have equal rights like his father. The illegitimate son does not have a right in his father's property unless specified in the will. Via succession, via intestate succession, via without will succession, he cannot claim a right if he has someone has an illegitimate son or a daughter. So someone who is actually in the womb, if the person dies, will also have a right in the father's property. But then the father has to be alive when the child was born. So inheritance right for daughters also exist. As I mentioned, pre-2005, only an unmarried daughter had the right to share. But after 2005, the Hindu Succession Act was amended and daughter was granted similar rights as well as duties that of a son. So they have equal share of the right in ancestral property as well. So if the father dies intestate or without any will, then the daughter, who's a class 1 here, will have succession rights equal to her living mother, sister, grandmother, or brother. So for grandchildren, again, for ancestral properties, they have equal rights like their father, like the children of the ancestor, if they are the grandchildren especially. So their rights are equal. For a spouse, the wife actually has no right in the ancestral property. She has the right only in the self-acquired property by from on her husband's right. So again, similarly, widow has no right over her husband's ancestral property. She has full right in as a class 1 here in this self-acquired property. So similarly, a widowed mother, as I mentioned earlier, has a right in her son's property as well. If the father is not there, then the widowed mother also can be an equal survivor or equal holder in the property. If there are 2 sons, 1 daughter, mother, and the one who passed away, his widowed mother, then the property gets divided into 5 equal parts in intestate succession, means without any will. So for an adopted child, the adopted child does have the same rights as the natural born child, because once adopted, the property rights in the biological rights the child relinquishes in the family, and he obtains a property before the adoption, then the property continues to be in his or her name. So I hope I have not landed you into this situation. If I have, let's simplify a bit more in the coming slides. So in the absence of nomination or will, the heirs are still required to prove their claims to them. So then the succession certificate is needed and another document. I mentioned about succession certificate and probate. Now comes the third document, the LOA, the letter of administration, again issued by the court to actually justify, especially this is LOA is issued, it is actually for the authenticity of the property interstate succession or the real estate succession. Usually in those cases, the LOA is needed, usually for immovable properties. For movable properties, usually you need only the succession certificate, or the nominee in the account should also be sufficing. But if a legal heir wants to claim over there, he will need a succession certificate from the court. So for immovable property, you have to produce the LOA in support of your claim, like a land or a jewelry. Both are considered immovable property. So again, if somebody has lent money to a company or individual, the borrower might ask the heirs for a proof as well. So the heirs will require a proof certificate from the court that they are entitled to the estate of the deceased. So they can ask the borrower to repay the money or issue a receipt that will prove that the borrower has returned the money to the right person. So for bank accounts, demat accounts, provident funds, I told you there is a provision for nominee, and banks release the funds to nominee on their own. But the nominee is usually not the legal beneficiary. He can be a custodian or a trustee, and the ultimate beneficiary can be determined by the succession planning or the legal heir, especially. If there is a dispute, which is a very common thing in India, the court can ask for a succession proof. And if the nominee refuses to cooperate or any other dispute, you would require a succession certificate from the local court as well in such a scenario. Sometimes the financial institution even can ask a nominee if they are in a doubt, or if they want to be on the, say, double testing part, they would want the claimant to produce either an affidavit or a succession certificate. I told you about my example. We were told to produce an affidavit attested from the local magistrate. So again, in further certain states, a probate is also required. Sometimes the probate and LOA is a similar thing. It is a copy of the will which is authenticated by the court. So, but usually there are two different things otherwise. So the succession certificate are mandatory for transferring the titles to the things. So whatever the amount is, it is a small amount or a big amount, the amount has not been specified. There is no thumb rule regarding it, but the bank or the financial institution may still ask for a declaration from the legal heir. And yes, that is subject to litigation if somebody commits a fraud. The number one section is 420 for fraud. And also 201 for destroying of evidence, for making any false certificates. And of course, criminal conspiracy is also added under section 120. So in some cases, the bank will ask for a legal hardship certificate, which is easier to obtain than the succession certificate. So we were asked to produce this only via affidavit. So this is a better one and an easier one. The succession certificate does take time, and the legal hardship actually just identifies the living heirs. And you have to just specify. In our case, I have no sister. So my mother and we two brothers were the legal heirs. So it was easy for us to manufacture the certificate, or say make it and produce it in the bank. So for procuring the succession certificate, the thing is you have to file the petition in the court with your name, relationship, name of other heirs, time, date, and place of death. Along with the death certificate is required. The court might ask for other documents as well. Then it issues a notices to all the people concerned, all the contestable heirs, those who contest a claim to the property or those who want to. And if the contested don't appear in the court, maybe after one or two notices, then their absence is considered as their consent. And also there is a publication in the newspaper, and the time frame is given. Usually that is 1.5 months. For if anybody has the objection that the so and so property is being transferred to the legal heir this, or the so and so has actually raised a claim to the property owned by Mr. So and so. So if anybody has objection, this is the time frame. You can make your representation to the local court and raise your objection. But if no one contests the notice, that is taken as the consent given, and if the court is satisfied, it issues a succession certificate. But if there is more than one petitioner, the court may jointly grant them the certificate. Sometimes it can take even 1 year for the succession certificate. But if there is a dispute, as it is very common in India, the petition goes into a lawsuit. And that is how the cases go on lingering for a single property, for sometimes a single yard of land, for single piece of land, for years and years altogether. So let's summarize the summary of the same in a different way. That if this is the Succession Act for the children, what were the guidelines? Yes, emotional value attached to it. The guidelines for the children, what happens if the disease is there with will or without will? What happens in a scenario when there is a nominee or a legal heir? What happens under the different religions? Which act is applicable to which religion? Now, what all you have to do. This is a section which is going to actually summarize in general. If somebody passes away in the family, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, whatever the situation, old age, young age, middle age, these steps are actually going to be the ones which are very common to all the individuals. So just pay a little bit attention, because this will summarize the whole things which you have to take care. एक इंसान चले जाता तो सिर्फ उसका एक बैंक अकाउंट और सिर्फ प्रॉपर्टी नहीं होती है. There are so many other things which are to be taken care of. And yes, many of you must have faced this scenario, since life and death are part of everyone's life. Some of you might have forgotten certain things if you had a recent death in your family. Probably if you have done that, if there are any additional things that you may have done, please notify me. I may be missing out on those things, maybe. So please do tell me. So let's summarize a few things. I told you about this thing. This is a repeat slide. Who are the class 1 heirs, class 2 heirs, agnates and cognates? Agnates are from the male side, relation through males, and the cognates are relation through females. So this is the heirs. This is the level of hierarchy. Heirs are per class 1 of the schedule. For the children, for the situation where the court appoints a local guardian for such children, those who have a property but no one to take care of them actually. So then class 1 here, then the class 2. If the class 2 are not there, then the agnates. If class 2 agnates are not there, then the cognates. So this is the hierarchy which is followed in such a scenario, because whosoever is appointed as the guardian by the court. See, the kids cannot go to the court. It is only by the intervention of the local government and with the efforts of the RT-PCR, the NT-PCR, sorry, and the CWC, the Child Welfare Committee. The state governments are notified, and accordingly the courts come into action, taking suo motu cognizance of the same, and they actually appoint a guardian in such a scenario. So someone, if he has a death, actually it is a reality check sometimes, not on life, but on the state of finances as well. People are actually waking up so fast. We have been witnessing so many deaths in this scenario, especially in the COVID one. I gave you the numbers in the start. Yes, it is a difficult time, but then you need to prioritize the financial things as well, because these are the things which will actually be very, very mandatory if you have to look into those things. So you have to actually you will be needing certain documents as well, and in terms of accounts, investments, loans, taxation, and insurance. So they might seem difficult tasks, but yes, especially if it is a financially active spouse who passes away, so it is best to hire a lawyer or a financial advisor to know about certain things. I'll try to actually summarize those things, or try to sort out the paperwork process, so that if you have to make a claim, have to close accounts, transfer investments, you are actually aware which all need to be taken care of. So inheriting assets, we all know many things because of the pandemic are being done online. But yes, for certain things, you still have to shake your leg and move to the local authorities which are there. So important documents, you have to start by collecting the documents only, various ones you will be needing in such cases. Separate them into 2 parts, identity and the address proofs. The KYC will be needed everywhere, wherever you go for applying that. And obviously collect all these details, collect documents, online details of your family member, collect the deceased PAN and Aadhaar cards, passport, license, election card, and ration card. Get multiple Xerox of them, because you will be needing them multiple times. Make separate folders, pens, blank A4 sheets. You will be needing all of them. So we'll save you the hassle, and actually again from signing of the documents later on. So if you or your family are the legal heir and the nominees, keep your KYC documents, multiple photostats, multiple Xerox ready as well. And store the original ones in your phone or your DigiLocker or your tab or a phone, whatever you're carrying, because you might be needing someone. So the ones on DigiLocker are actually valid for verification as well, physically also, if you're not carrying a physical one, sorry. So you can scan these as well and store it over there. So then your internet banking passwords, online mutual fund investments, insurance, filing tax returns are certain things which you will be needing. So it is always best to have all such data at one place. And if you have keep the original secured in a secure place like a bank locker if you want. But if not, you should be having the Xerox and the ones, because this is not a one-day job. This is going to take several weeks and several months for sure. So the number 2 steps after collecting your KYC document is getting the death certificate. Earlier, you used to get only one death certificate, and the multiple Xerox were valid, either getting it attested from the counselor or from a lawyer or from a notary public. You could use that. But now everybody, everywhere would need a original death certificate, and you are entitled to multiple death certificates as well, in multiples of 10 as well. For example, in Punjab, the charges for one death certificate are 50 or 60 now. Sorry, it has now been raised to 70. So if you need 5, you pay additional 10 rupees for that. So usually 5 rupees is for the data searching charges, 50 are facilitating charges, and 10 are for the death certificate. For 65, add the tax and they round it off to 70. So 70 for the first certificate. Anytime you apply, you pay 70. But if you apply 9 copies more, you pay 70 plus 90, 160 rupees. This is the system in Punjab. I believe that this would be the system everywhere. Remember, you will need multiple death certificates to be given at every financial institution. And as per the latest government mandate, which is being revised since October 2019, October 2018, every place would require an original death certificate. So, and it is mandatory to register the death, take a, say, cremation certificate. Usually the cremation office will give you a cremation certificate usually within 24 to 48 hours of the death whenever you go for cremation. And the same has to be taken to the local municipal Suvidha Kendra or Seva Kendra or whichever there is in your state. In Punjab, we have the Suvidha and the Seva Kendras. So we have to go within 3 weeks of the death, and we can get it registered. And then the process begins for issuing the death certificate. If you go after 21 to 30 days, you have to pay a penalty, but and get it certified by the medical officer as well. But if you go after 30 days and up to 1 year, again, the process becomes longer, and you have to again go for verification, firstly for this document only. Then the JMIC might be needing the cause of death certificate, the cremation certificate, and an affidavit along with. So remember, it is mandatory that you register the death within the first 3 weeks only. So then, because I mentioned it will be needed everywhere for every financial task. People earlier, photocopies were valid. Now, although these days original is required everywhere. Earlier, you could get it attested or notarized from the lawyer or the notary public, but now they have to be submitted in original. Then, if your father or if your whosoever family member has passed, elder one has left your will, locate that and apply for legal heir certificate or LOA or the succession certificate, whichever is valid. Now you know which is to be applied where. So I hope if even if there is not a will, sometimes the legal heir certificate is good enough, especially if there is no estrangement of relationship. If there is an estrangement of relationship between the two brothers or even any siblings or even between the mother and the kids, then the succession certificate need to come into account, especially if there is intestate succession or if there is no will. So if there is a will, you need to know that if there were any nominees appointed in the bank account, because for demat account, for shares, the nomination will take precedence over a will. Again, for handing over the initial amounts, yes, a legal heir can still challenge them, as I've told you. So if the deceased has passed away without a will or intestate, you'll have to get a succession certificate or a LOA for ownership of a immovable property, especially. So remember, this is very important in such a case. So there is a difference between a LHC and a succession certificate, the legal heir and the succession one, because the legal heir actually establishes identity and it gives you, it has a limited relevance in succession. While the succession certificate actually determines the successors of such individuals. So the legal heir is used for benefits like compensation, insurance, provident fund, pension, connection, bank deposits. So while succession is actually to prove the authenticity of the heirs, that all the debts and the security of the deceased can be passed out to them in such a scenario. So succession certificate works for transferring of the immovable property. Legal heir works for the transfer of movable property as well. where the amounts are not very high usually. So again, legal hire takes less cost and less time as well. The succession certificate, as I mentioned, and takes sometimes as good as 1 year also. And courts levy sometimes a fixed percentage of the value of property as well for issuing a succession certificate. So the LOA and the probate are instruments sometimes used interchangeably to show that both the properties actually allow. They are the ones which actually prove the authenticity of the legal hires in such a situation. So a probate is granted to the executor and a will to oversee distribution, but the LOA is granted to the legal heir in absence of a will and if the executor is not discharging his duties. So what are the financial tasks that you have to do in case of a death? Transfer the task into different things. Assets like movable and immovable properties, the liabilities like loans and debts, the expenses like premiums, utilities, tax, membership, subscriptions, and income or employment. Divide it into 4 heads: assets, liabilities, expenses, and income. So let's see these heads one by one in short. So as I mentioned, the probate process. Probate is the process of proving a will and executing it according to the deceased, which is also known as decedent. So any asset, any big or small, can be subjected to the probate process after the death of the deceased. So inform the institutions about the death of the family member. You can send a mail, or you can go personally, whatever is feasible. In COVID times, you can send a mail as well. That is as good as valid as your physical visit. So then they will actually inform you how to proceed. In a normal scenario, they can tell you what are the documents required, how you can go about doing the task. So for investments and assets, a registered will obviously will ease your process. Probate won't be mandatory, so there is no dispute as well. The will actually passes on. But if the will is absent, the LOA is needed, or the succession certificate and the LHC, both will be needed. So the movable property like bank deposits, stocks, securities, mutual funds, post office schemes, provident funds, gold jewelries, insurance, vehicles, and other properties. These are the movable properties. So imagine if somebody has all of them, what is the amount of time that is going to be taken up in all these things? So usually there are nominees in such cases, so it can be easily transferred via death certificate and identity proof of the legal hire. So in case of bank deposits, you need to make sure that you have to operate the account after the death. Even the lockers have to be operated after the death of the member in such a scenario. So if the bank account is by spouses and one of them dies, the surviving spouse will have to close it and start a new account, and should do it jointly with the adult child. But if the surviving spouse is the first holder, then you don't need to close the account. Then automatically the name of the second holder will decease. Only Yes Bank provides you changing of the sequence of the holders of the bank. No other bank, private or scheduled bank like the government banks, if the first holder dies, the account has to be closed and the new account is to be opened in whosoever gets the nominee, or whosoever is the nominee, or whosoever is the legal hire accordingly. Only Yes Bank currently has this system where even the primary holder can be replaced in the bank, because whatever amount of holders the bank account has, as per the income tax laws, the amount, the interest, the liability belongs to the first holder. Joint account, multiple account, triplicate account, 4 holders. I'm talking of the normal savings of the current account. Individuals, not the company ones. So the first holder has all the taxation probabilities as well, all the liabilities of taxation and all the liabilities of interest being added into his income. So even if the mode of operation is A by S, anyone or survivor, or E by S, either or survivor, in both the cases, even then amount belongs to the first holder. So usually the account is to be closed. But if the passing away spouse is the second holder, then you don't need to close the account. You can still add a new holder to that existing account. Can be your son, can be your daughter, whatever you wish to, if you are the surviving spouse. So this new account can actually be used to consolidate all your redemptions and benefits from various instruments at one place. If there are actually disputes, then you have to take NOC or consent from all, or rely on the will. If you have, if there is no will, legal here certificate or succession or the letter of administration. So for the vehicles, the insurance policy is also transferred in the name of the legal hire. So you will not only have to transfer the ownership, but the insurance policy also as well. So in real estate, the transfer is governed usually by the will only. So it depends upon whether one has made the will or not. So in case of a will, you can actually give property to anyone you like, and the executor has to execute that. In immovable properties, especially in metropolitans where there are cooperative society laws governing them, the probate of the will is also required, which actually proves its authenticity. So we know Hindu Succession Act is covered by these sects: Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, monks, and Sikhs. By Parsis and Christians comes under Indian Succession Act, and the Muslims under the Shariat Law 1937. So you'll need to sometimes prepare a affidavit along with a no objection certificate from legal heirs as well as their successors. So after that, you have to register the property and apply for mutation. Mutation is also known as intikal in Hindi or Punjabi. So this is actually to record the transfer of the title. The whole documents might not be needed, just the land revenue records in which the entry can be made. Again, a tedious process, but then it does take its time as well. But again, you cannot rely on keeping the property in the name of the deceased. So then the legal hire gets the positives, but he gets the negatives as well. So you cannot claim that secured or unsecured loan, the loans and the liabilities also belong to the legal hire. So even if they are for home loan, vehicle loan, personal loan, or credit card due, the legal hire has to honor all the obligations in such cases. Yes, they can request the companies to waive off any scenario where there are late fees or for the missed EMI dues are there. Yes, they usually will oblige in such a cases. But yes, whatever the principal amount and the interest is due before application or before applying of the late fee and other credit or finance charges, the same can be still waived off. So inform all the creditors about the family member's death. If they have a co-signer or a joint debtor, the latter will be held responsible for repaying the loan. If he fails to do so, the lender can file a lawsuit in order to get a payment. In case of a single borrower, the executor of the will is responsible for settling the debts. So if there is no will, the administrator is appointed by the court to actually take care of the debts before they're passed on to the legal hires. So typically the legal hire will repay all the debts, loan or credit card dues. Then the biggest confusion, taxation. My dad passed away on June 2019. It was financial year 1920 going on. So at that time, July 2019, the IT return for the year 17-18 was due, which had to be for year 2018-19 was due, which was actually filed by my mother. So a legal heir certificate was received from the bank, again via affidavit, and the same via documents demanded by the income tax department. They were uploaded by me on the income tax server, and after 1, 2, and 3 attempts, yes, it was successful. And my mom and my dad's login was disabled. And because my mom was the legal hire or the legal guardian in this case to file the ITR. So whenever I used to open up my mom's login, ITR login, it used to ask login as self or login as the legal hire. So if I click legal hire, my dad's section used to open up. So in the similar way, I filed up the return for dad in July 19 for previous year. And again for these 3 months, April, May, June 19, which is the year 1920, I filed up last year as well. Obviously, there would have not been any tax liability, but still after that, I had to request. I sent a letter via my mom, of course, to the income tax department, and the PAN card has to be physically surrendered back to the income tax department in case of the deceased death. You cannot keep, like other documents, your Aadhaar card or ration card, you can't keep it with yourself. You have to submit the PAN card. Since there are a lot of frauds happening, So you have to write a letter to them. They'll grant you authenticity, and you just have to go in over there and submit your PAN card in original. So again, the legal representative which is there, not the legal guardian, sorry, the legal representative. My mom was allotted to the category of legal representative. Sorry. So if your income is actually above 2.5, below 60, above 60 to 80, 3 lakhs, and above 5 lakhs for 80 years super senior citizens, it has to be there. So all those documents are mandatory. We attach the death certificate, the deceased PAN card, and the legal heirs PAN card, the legal representative's PAN card, the legal heir certificate, and a notarized affidavit along with, to apply for filing of the ITR for my dad's behalf. So yes, the PAN card will have to be cancelled by physically going to the income tax office, fill the cancellation form, get a receiving from them. So then when it comes to insurance, life, health, or vehicle insurance is transferred in your name because the vehicle, if you are going to drive, but the other ones have to be closed. The life insurance, the term traditional annuity plans, if the owner dies, of the holder of the policy dies, the proceeds are paid to the beneficiaries and the policy ends. It cannot be transferred to the legal heir or the nominee. But the policy means it does not continue. The proceeds are then just transferred to the beneficiaries or the nominee. You can, again, the system is there. There are a lot of documents to be given. Along with that, the original documents, the legal heir certificate, the death certificate, and whatever else they ask for, you have to give them. And for health insurance also, if the person dies, the policy is terminated, and the pro rata premium paid for that refund is issued back. For example, you paid the premium for the whole next year, and if the deceased person dies after 3 months, you will get on the pro rata basis, you'll get a refund of the policy for refund of the premium paid for 9 months to the nominee in such a case. Again, whatever the documents are needed, usually the common ones are there. They all of them have their own specification of the documents. So those are asked and they can be taken care of. So vehicle insurance, I told you, the insurance can be transferred in such a case because the vehicle still exists. And even if you have to sell the vehicle, you need to have a insurance transferred in your name. So the only thing is, if the insurance has not lapsed, if the insurance has lapsed, then you have to renew it in your name so that you can continue with the vehicle insurance. So for people who are on salary, you have to contact the employer as well. Get the form 16, the transfer the EPF, gratuity, leave encashment, or other dues for the employer. Again, you have to submit your legal heir certificate, death certificate, and all the documents which are the standard with any company are to be given to process the claim. And if somebody has actually loans as well, the employer can deduct those as well. You have to give your KYC as well. And for the EPF, Form 20 is there with the employer, and you have to submit that also timely. If there is any loan, the employer can deduct the loan amount pending before passing on the requisite dues. So also all the identification cards of the organization, official accounts and emails have to be closed as well. So if any group or health insurance is there in which the family was covered, these will cease to act since the employee has died. So if you don't have an independent policy, once the family member who was covering you under his group health plan, if you all know the group health plan, what is the group health plan? You have undergone 3 sessions of health insurance with me. So you will have to buy a fresh policy to keep the coverage intact. So then comes the third category or the fourth category, utilities and expenses. So all utilities are electricity, water, gas, telephone, cable, internet. All these payments which are due have to be done to avoid any penalties. So if the utilities are in the name of deceased, you have to get a TS1 and then see and transfer the same in the name of the legal hire. So all will have their own process. Yes, this is again going to be a very tedious site. Some processes are possible online, but in government departments, many processes have to be done by physical visits. And trust me, physical visits are sometimes not, they don't do the work in one visit or so. So then the miscellaneous ones, you might find it trivial, but the club membership or a gym membership or an online subscription like a Netflix, Amazon, or a gaming or a retail membership, you need to actually overlook these expenses as well. If they are automated through the credit card and the credit card is to be returned back, you have to close the subscriptions and automated payments as well. You need to make sure about that part also. Again, very important is that email and social media accounts are also closed, as these can be misused as well. So small little things, but these are the things which you really need to make sure that you actually adhere to in such scenarios. So official communication emails should be retained sometimes for securing assets and benefits, but the phone cards and SIM cards can also be retained, and all data can be transferred to your computer, because phone will have sometimes password scan documents. But remember to return all the credit and the debit and the ATM cards. Obviously, when you close the account, you need to return these two. So the credit cards also, since they are a form of credit, you need to make sure that you return these as well. So I hope this kind of a situation does not happen as soon as the pyre is burnt and there is nothing sort of a hassle or a say dispute happens in the individuals as soon as the individual dies. So what is the carry home gyan for today? Just the 2 slides. We all know the weeks when the loved one dies are actually harrowing. So if the person is family's primary bread earning member, then surely the matters are even worse. On one hand, we are worried about the cost of living. On the other hand, such matters which actually require us to be have, because the ones who are sitting in the government seat, they are not bothered about such thing. It is a routine thing for them. For you, it might be a new thing that somebody in close to your family has passed away. It can alleviate your stress, put you under a blood pressure tablet, and your life can also be back on track. Your work can also suffer because of frequent visits to such offices. But then these are equally important. We all need to understand that these have to be proceeded in an organized manner. And like health insurance, the COVID-19 brought us to another reality: writing or making your will. So that is the reason I have fast tracked this session along with health insurance. This is the primary reason for all of you. I've tried to journalize the scenario as well, for including those people also who died pre-COVID, during COVID, maybe in future as well. Somebody has a loss of family member. You need to take care of these certain aspects. So whatever it is, this video will be on YouTube forever, 8 June onwards. So yes, if your loved ones write a will, there are other matters to ensure that the efforts that he or she has done don't go waste. So this is the moral of the whole story for today. The benefits of making a will: it ensures the care, reveals your assets, provide clear instructions. I've shared the form in the groups as well multiple times, where you have given a handout to all your family members about all your assets, all your liabilities, so that each and every family member is aware of it. I mentioned that we actually don't discuss such financial matters in our family, and they become the bane sometimes for usually the holders in such scenario. So thank you so much for a patient hearing. I overshot my time by 10-15 minutes, but then certain things were required to be added over there. So thank you so much. You have my YouTube channel link. So if you are not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to my channel. You're getting every video, every day one video in one form or the another. So these will continue till the end of July minimum. So this is my address, my email, and my website. You can get in touch with me. So my social media presence, all by my name, except my page, which I notified you in the group today. So all my presence is by name only, Dr. Bhavdeep. It is standardized all over. So if you want to read more on finance, a 5,000 worded article till part 20 has been published in WGSR, or are available on my website. So direct link to download is drbhavdeep.com/finance.html. The site is under upgrade, so you might face a downtime occasionally. So please bear with me. So since this video is on YouTube and on my page as well, if somebody of you wants to be added on my free WhatsApp group, which are running almost since 4 years now. So this is the link. I wanted to keep them till 5, but now the 6th is also on. So if whenever some people leave from one group, I shift from temporary group to the other members, so that the same groups are kept to the brim till then. So do send me a valuable feedback in WhatsApp, whatever group you are in. So bookers and brickbats both would be welcome in equal measure. This was a session more on emotional basis rather than anything else. I have been under a turmoil of a few urgent problems in the past 3-4 days, but I didn't let them come in between this session and myself. So thank you once again, and I stop my share for queries from any of you if there are. Firstly, I'll take up the chat queries. So Dr. Raghu and Dr. Bhavna, if you can please notice if there are any queries on the page, please do tell me. So surely I'll be doing it. Oh, no problem, Dr. Adarsh. I accidentally stopped it, and after that, the share was automatically that pencil share was automatically disabled. No worries. Okay, thank you, Dr. Vandana. So Dr. Raghu asks, if a deceased person has daughters and sons and each of them have different number of children, how would the inherited property and his self-earned be shared, sir, without a will? And does the second generation have any role in percentage of share? The second generation has a role in the ancestral property, but not in the self-acquired property, Dr. Raghu. The direct legal heirs are only the direct progenies or the direct dependents of the deceased person. For example, the male member has expired, his immediate would be his sons and daughters and the widowed wife. They will be the ones who will be getting the share in the self-acquired property. But for the ancestral property, the widowed wife might not have a share. The sons and their further sons will have a right in equal property. And I think you did not attend that session when I discussed these things of ancestral and self-acquired property. I think it was in basic session 9 or 8. I don't remember exactly. I'll let you know which session I shared about the self-acquired and the ancestral property in detail. So thank you, Dr. Raghu. Yes, I try to cover all other deaths as well, not necessarily due to COVID, but in COVID, we have seen so many colleagues have lost their family members. So it was very important for me to actually include all these things in such a situation. Thank you, Dr. Ramchandra. So no questions are there on Facebook. Okay, thank you. This was a feedback over there. Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, thank you, Dr. Divya. I didn't expect this many number on the Zoom platform. Yes, it is a pleasant surprise that so many of you are there in this area. Yes, Dr. Rajat, you raised your hand. Please unmute yourself and you can ask the query.
Sir, a very good session though, and I have few queries, sir.
Yeah.
So first, my query is, supposedly there are 5 siblings, and the father has died a long time ago. When the mother died, mother has written a will that it should, everything, movable, immovable, everything should be equally distributed among the 5. But out of those 5, if one is not willing to sign for the legal documents, for anything to proceed, like for selling of the house, he's not ready to, and for the change of FDs from the mother's name to sibling's name, he's not ready to. In such a case scenario, if one of the sibling is causing a problem, is there anything the other siblings can do?
Yes, you can approach the court in such a case with the will. You can get a succession certificate that one of the siblings is creating a problem. The sibling might even lose the right as well if he's creating problems sometimes. Of course, the courts don't usually give such adverse decisions when the testator, when there is a, say, succession by a testament way or by a will way, then you need to actually, basically, before going to the court, you need to indulge in a counseling kind of a thing, that all the, maybe the elders of the family or maybe all the 4 siblings can sit down and ask the 5th one that what is the problem with him. Maybe he is feeling cheated, that he was the apple of the eye of the mother or the father, and he actually wanted a lion's share in the property which is being there, and he got an equal share, like a 20% share in such a scenario. So you need to be, he needs to be made aware of the reality, and maybe his family can be involved in that. There is usually an ego involved only. But if the matters goes out of hand, then the only thing is that the court is the last resort in such a scenario. Yeah.
Thank you for the answer. Another question was, in one of your examples, you told that if a man, he dies unexpectedly, thinking that 50 to 60 lakh rupees in my bank account, this will be taken by my wife, and movable property, whatever is it, it will be distributed amongst my sons, 2 sons. But he has not written any will. So in such a case, the money also goes to the sons. Now, this is where my confusion begins. Is it not correct that after the death of husband, legal heir should be wife in a Hindu family?
Technically, if there is no will, then legal heir will be all the dependents. Even if the sons are earning, the daughters, even if married, they are the legal heirs. So that is what makes the importance of will more significant in today's times. So yes, the wife is the should have been the primary. It used to happen till some time back. The properties, for example, in Punjab only, the properties used to get automatically transferred in wife's name if there was no will, if the husband died. But now, unless there is a will separately, they get transferred in all the surviving dependents of that deceased. Yes, that is why I always say ignorance is not a bliss. The deceased might not be aware that nominee is actually a custodian. But that is the reason I am educating you all, to spread the awareness amongst you, your friend circle, your family members. So this is the way you need to be aware of this thing. If you want to read more about Hindu Succession Act, I'll forward you the copy of the same in the group itself. So, but yes, this is an unfortunate fact. The example I also gave, that he supposedly gave the bank money to his wife. But in such a case, some people would have to be really thick-blooded, that the sons would actually challenge the same in the court, that my mother has no right, I am the legal heir. So then then blood knows no boundaries in such a case. There is no difference between water and blood, as they say. तो खून भी पानी हो गया, they say ना. तो अगर mother के नाम पे account है, it'll require a huge amount of courage to challenge that in court, that yes, that money also belongs to me. Greed has no limit, but yes, people do such things as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any more queries? I hope you all got the answer, Rajat.
Yes, sir. To both my questions. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. If changes are made after registration of will, should it be registered? Ma'am, yes. If codicil is added, you may want to register it as an additional benefit. But as I said, registered or unregistered, the will still stands the same value. It does not lose its value, even if it is on a paper or a stamp paper, if it is registered or not registered. The only thing is, it just adds a little bit of more weight and adds a bit of more authenticity to such a situation. And yes, if you can register the codicil as well, it can be wonderful, surely. So, few more queries. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sabyasachi. I hope your father is okay now, doing great. So, yes, Dr. Harsh, the practical approach is required in such a topic. But yes, it was an emotional topic for me. Since the month is also my father's month, June. So, plus it carries a lot of emotional value otherwise. And yes, Dr. Adarsh's topic hit me somewhere. So, I had to take this topic. So, yes, thank you, Dr. Sameer. Yes, any more queries? I'll be more than willing to take them up. Yes, thank you, Dr. Madhavi. Again, any members of your family have any dispute, any confusion, any misunderstanding, you have this session to actually refer to. And I can vouch for it. Whatever information as of today I've given you is all correct. There is nothing wrong in the information that I've rendered, because I always double check my information, whatever I have, because many of the things keep on changing as per amendments. As the thing pertaining to death certificate, which was amended in 2018, I mentioned it separately over here, that yes, it is there. So any more queries? Dr. Navjot, if you want to add something, if I missed something. Good to see you here. Having dinner, I guess. Any queries on FB page, Dr. Raghu?
No, sir, nothing after that, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. If there is no death certificate, in that case, how can an ancestral property death certificate to hona bahut zaruri hai? That is the basic document, Dr. Divya, because death certificate na ho, that is not possible, because any cremation crematorium registers the death. And usually they send the information themselves to the corporation as well. We just have to sometimes take that certificate and do that, because their reconciling of data keeps on happening. We still need to make sure that we go to the local office, local corporation, local Suvidha Kendra or Seva Kendra, whatever it is, and register the same and get a death certificate, because that is the basic thing from where the proceedings are going to begin. Without that certificate, nothing is going to happen. If there is a scenario where the death certificate has actually been not registered or not been opted for, then I told you the procedure. When you have to go in for a process which you have to follow, then you go in for those things, and then you can get a death certificate under the orders of the court only. So thank you, Dr. Adarsh. Dr. Adarsh, if you have any queries. Yes, Dr. Rajat. Dr. Rajat, your hand is raised. You want to ask anything?
Sorry, sir, accidentally.
No problem, no problem. Okay, Dr. Sameer asks, after divorce, if the child is in custody of mother, the child has the legal to ask for property from his father, or he or she get whatever decided at the time of the divorce. See, a natural child gets a right into the father's property by birth. So that is given that he will have the right. The mother may have gotten the alimony, but the child will still continue to have the right. If the father remarries and has another child, and before his death makes a will in the name of his second child, which is actually his legal child, and names nothing in the case of the first child, the child can still contest the same in the court. Then that decision is dependent upon the Honorable Judge Sahab. So usually the wills are adhered to, and the same is usually respected, say resorted to as correct by the honorable courts, and they don't go in for such scenarios in that case. But yes, the legal child has the right, the first child has the right to contest the will. Surely.
Good evening, sir. A very Dr. Adarsh Padiyar here.
Yes, Dr.
Very
Adarsh.
good, enlightening session, sir.
Thank you.
Because what inspired me to asking this to take this session was my wife being a school teacher. She came to know that one of her students was orphaned because of an unfortunate death. That led to me a lot of introspection, and who can be the right person other than you who can take this topic in a very lucid explanation like which you did today. It was very enlightening, and I very much informed that regarding the nominee and legal heir, that was the key point, because most of our parents or maybe our FDs, they will be only having nomination and will be blindly sitting relaxed that after our times this will be going to the person nominated as on the FD bonds. And the legal heirs point was very much needed point, sir. You gave a very good clarity on that. Thank you very much, sir. You have been doing a wonderful job on sharing the knowledge on this platform. Excellent. Keep doing this, sir. God bless you, sir. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Dr. Adarsh. Thank you so much. So yes, the clarity between nominee and legal heir is very important. Fortunately, a couple of the group members joined late in my paid group. But yes, this was the case scenario that I actually was facing in my very close family relations, in my cousin's family. So I actually put up that as a query in my MPG just at the start of the year. I think the paid group started on 19th Jan. So this was a query on 22nd or 23rd, and it carried on for 2 to 3 days for discussion repeatedly about nominee and the legal hire. People have this notion about the legal hire and the nominee, and they are actually sometimes misinformed. But then my duty to dispel the myths and doubts, whatever and in whatever way I can. Thank you so much. Any more queries, or we call it a day? So thank you so much. Do post your yes, Dr. Divya, they are not the same. They can be same, but they need not be same always. So do post your feedback in whatever free group you are in. and the paid group. Of course, it actually the purpose of feedback is not only to say something for me. It is the purpose of the feedback is to post your takeaways, because that motivates the more and more members actually to look at this scenario. Like health insurance, this is one aspect which I feel that everybody should be aware of. So there is no personal motive of mine in this, as you all can know, in making you write a feedback or a takeaway from you, but it is all for all the community, all the members of the group, whosoever are in our groups at large, for those. So thank you so much, and see you next week with the pending sessions of this week, and much more as a surprise in the coming week. So thank you one and all. Take care. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself and don't take stress. प्रॉपर्टी हाथ का मैल है, ये याद रखना. प्रॉपर्टी और पैसा दोनों हाथ का मैल है. आज गई तो कल फिर आएगी. डोंट वरी. थैंक यू सो मच. टेक केयर. गुड नाइट. बाय बाय.